Welcome back, Bear Down. Very excited to share this with you guys. We're going to go through this kind of quick. This is something I've been working on for a while. I had to fine-tune it a little bit. I did have a lot of the spots where we've made moves slotted for someone to be made a move to come into, but I'm going to go over the 53-man roster projection before it happens next Tuesday. For those who don't know, I am going to go live for much of Tuesday. We're going to have a draft party. Might not be as popular for everyone, but we're going to have a little draft party for the fantasy football draft with prizes awarded at the end of the season. 2 leagues there. The winners to face off in Week 16. If you haven't signed up for that, please do so. I'll put the link in the comment for my Twitter and for my email to email me if you want to get in. There's like 2 or 3 spots left, so email me right now so we can get it done and get on that. So I'm going to go over the 53-man roster projection. We're going to go through pretty quick, but I'm going to give you with basis and analysis why each position is going to be filled by who, and I'm fairly confident in this. We'll see next Tuesday how accurate I am. But I really feel confident in the decisions that I made for this 53-man roster. And if I was Ryan Poles, these are the moves that I would make. So let's start by last year's 53-man roster where we had, you can focus on the guys if you want to. If you look up and down that, you're going to see we're clearly improved from last year. This is a team that is clearly ready to dominate. I'll say dominate with the improvements we've made. All this team needs to do is get a little experience under their belt. The first half of the season set up perfectly for that. But I'm going to look first at the left. Far left, you see quarterback. We had 2. So this is how many positions we had for each spot. 2 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, including a fullback, 6 receivers, 3 tight ends, 10 offensive linemen, 9 defensive linemen. And one of the biggest reasons we had 10 offensive linemen is because there's a lot of instability there. I traded for Dan Feeney right at the very end, brought us in our 10th guy because we weren't really shored up. 5 linebackers, 6 cornerbacks, 4 safety, 3 specialists. That's kind of right within range with most teams in the league. I think ours is going to change just a little bit. So what I have is 2 quarterbacks. I know. I'll get in the quarterback position. A lot of people want us to keep 3, but I really think it's 2 because we have 2 solid ones. 4 running backs, 6 receivers, 4 tight ends, 9 linemen, 9 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, 6 cornerbacks, 4 safeties, and 3 specialists. Really, the only thing that's changed there, if you look at that, is 1 less running back, and Shane Waldron doesn't use fullbacks in his system. He uses more tight ends, so I've included 1 more tight end. And if you're paying attention this offseason, all preseason, those tight end sets were clear and obvious all throughout the preseason. So, and his tight ends do more of the blocking than his fullbacks do. Not many teams use a fullback anymore, like 10 to 12 of them do. So I think the Bears will become 1 less this offseason with tight ends having 1 more, and then linebackers adding 1 more spot, 1 less offensive lineman as the line has become a little bit more short up. The linebackers become more valuable when it comes to the new kickoff rules and not having to go 40 yards down the field. It's really 10 yards in coverage, more like a linebacker would, and when they're run covering. So if that makes sense to people, 1 more linebacker is going to be pretty much throughout the league. You're going to see that 6th linebacker on most teams. Nothing else really changed there. So let's get into my reasons to why. So I'm going to go through a couple of clear and obvious ones that we keep. So I'm going to go through the reasons we have certain keepers. And right off the bat, premium rookies. So day 1 and 2, all day 3 picks that had no doubt potential as well. And that's pretty much all of our picks this year. We had very limited picks. So all 5 of these guys are locks. And you see the lock on the side. These are going to be my locks for the roster. And I'll go through a couple of these scenarios, about 5 of them. Then I'll get into the more difficult decisions to make. So Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Kieran Amagaji, Torrey Taylor, Austin Booker. I don't think there needs to be a lot of explanation on this. All these guys are locks for this roster. So here's where we update it. We're going to update as we go along as they slot in. There we go. Next, you're going to have your premium second-year players day 1 and 2, mostly for salary cap reasons. Let me get off of Tyson Bagent there for a minute. We'll remove me for this slide. These guys are all locks. All second-year players day 1 and 2, and all second-year returners and or significant players that are second-year players because the salary cap value, but also they have so much high upside. You're still working with these guys while they're young. I don't know if anybody's going to disagree with any of these. Darnell Wright, Jervon Dexter Sr., Tyreek Stevenson, Zach Pickens, Roshan Johnson, Tyler Scott, Noah Sewell, Terrell Smith, and Tyson Bagent. All going to be locks for this team. I'm not going to go too deep on any of these, but I'm just going to show. So all the orange shows that room is filled up. It's solidified. It's done. So orange is done there. Next, we're going to get our major contracts and our starters. And you can see the value of these. So these are all your ones that are like 9, 10 million or more. as well as kicker. When your kicker's getting paid $4 million, that's a major contract as well for a kicker. So all these are your major contracts. There's no way you're cutting any of these guys. Montez Sweat, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Tremaine Edmonds, Dalen Johnson, Cole Kmet, Nate Davis, DeMarcus Walker, TJ Edwards, Cairo Santos. Now, some of these, I know some people are unhappy with Nate Davis, but the reality is his contract this year keeps him on the team, and he does shore up the guard room. Even if he's not a starter, which they've said he is if he's healthy, even if he's not a starter, he has value on this team this year. So he will be on the team this year. So that's where it starts to fill things up a little bit more. It's about 24 guys on the roster at this point. Now you have your other major off-season acquisitions. DeAndre Sweat, Gerald Everett, Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, Kevin Byard, Jonathan Owens, Darrell Taylor, and Chris Williams. Obviously, those are the two newest ones. All 8 of those are significant acquisitions that you paid to get on this team, and you were going to have them on the team. Proven in the NFL or high upside that the team saw and scouted. These are all locks for the roster as well. So you add them to it. You can look at that for a minute. Like I said, I'm not going to try to spend too much time on this. We'll do more in-depth stuff as we get. This is more about my speculation that the 53-man roster and giving you guys some basis as to why and that this should be the way that it goes. All right, next we're going to get other starters. These are starters on the team. There's no way you're going to cut your starters, especially when they're playing so well. Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Jack Sanborn, and Andrew Billings. All starters on the team. You slot them in. They're all locked in. Those are locks on the team. So you see it's starting to fill out. There's not too many spots that really have a lot of other questions. You've got 2 out of your 4 running backs. You've got 4 out of your 6 receivers, 2 out of your 4 tight ends. The offensive line, defensive line almost filled up. So let's get into now my speculation on where we go. Now, I think you do this. These 2 are locks. Obviously, we've already solidified that the quarterback room is done. But you do this because you're comfortable with either of these 2 guys on your practice squad, and you're going to have a quarterback on the practice squad, and you're going to end up bringing them up for the game day. You're going to rotate them in. You're going to have transactions every single week. It's what happens. You bring them up to the 53-man roster, and then you have them as your emergency quarterback because of the new quarterback rules. So they will be on the 53-man roster during the weeks, but for the initial cut down, I don't see them being on the roster. And if we lose one of them, it's just cost of having a deep team. That's what that is this year. So Austin Reed or Brett Rippon, a lot of high upside potential for either one of them, but we'll probably lose one of them. It's probably what's going to happen. All right, the running backs. Let's move this again out of the way. We'll just make me smaller. Make me smaller. All right, so I'm going to give my reasons why, but I'm going to keep Khalil Herbert and Velus Jones Jr. If you didn't see, Ian Wheeler is on the injured reserve now. That means we get to keep him. We get to pay him, but it's worth it. As he comes back, however long that ACL injury takes, he tore his ACL. So, yeah, significant injury. Sucks, but also makes an avenue for him to be able to stay on this roster and develop, learn. I really don't like it. I wanted to see him on kick returns. I wanted to see his abilities. But we do get to keep him now. He'll be on the injured reserve, and we do have a couple of these guys every year. But Velus has solidified his spot on the roster. Shane Waldron doesn't use fullback sets and often employs tight end instead. So that's why I only have 4 fullbacks. And yes, I have Travis Homer and Kerry Blasingame both being cut. Velus Jones is too valuable on kick returns, and as a gadget back, and Roshan and fullbacks are extremely adequate to block. And even Velus has shown his ability to block as well. So I've got us keeping those 4. And then as we get through the entire offense, I'll show the entire offense solidified. And I have us keeping Dante Pettis and Colin Johnson, not just because of the offseason, but there's so many avenues for both of them. Colin Johnson being 6'6", good hands, high point contested guy. If you have Romo Dunze go down, he's a good guy to fill in. You're obviously going to be targeting DJ Moore, Keenan Allen the most, but he could be an avenue to help as well. Dante Pettis in the slot has absolutely killed it this offseason. In the preseason, when he's played in the slot, he's been great. He's a great kicker or punt returner. He could be put back on kick return as well. Tyler Scott's been doing that a lot. I don't love it, but they seem to be liking it. But Dante Pettis has shown his value. DeAndre Carter has shown anything special. Nasimba Webster is also going to the IR as well. So he'll be, he had some good games, so he'll be good. But these guys showed the most upside, the most high value. With Colin Johnson, the big game that he had, yes, he was injured a little bit. He's back. He'll be fine. He's probably not going to dress for most games anyways with the high. Only 46 of your 53 are going to dress for the game. But if you do have someone go down, you have him on the roster. And he has a unique ability with his high point catch. Dante Pettis with kick returns, punt returns, and how well he's played and come along. I mean, the Bears wanted him in 2022. They said they wouldn't have cut him in 23 except for the injuries, so they had to do an injury settlement. He would have been on the team last year, so I just see this being the 6 that we carry. The bigger news here, let me get my face off for this one. Brennan Bates. I still don't think a lot of people realize, and Tommy Sweeney was cut earlier. For those who haven't seen that, I got to remember to try to mention some of those things. But both these guys, Brennan Bates and Mercedes Lewis, are going to make the roster for their blocking ability, 100%. But Brennan Bates, he adds such an exciting element to this team with Shane Waldron's offense. He showed it in the preseason. The one thing I was worried about was his hands. Didn't have any hands problems at all this preseason. He looked really, really solid. He's a true asset on all 3 aspects of the game. Special teams grade, he had a 75.3. His blocking grades, 85.8 overall with 74.9 on run blocking, 77 on pass blocking. You noticed him, and that's what you want. If you've got a player you're noticing that's a tight end and he's blocking well and helping this team out, that's what Mercedes Lewis is. And if he can take over and learn a little bit more from Mercedes Lewis and be able to be that guy that steps up next year, and we get to keep him because we have him for 3 years on an undrafted free agent rookie contract, that's phenomenal. And then his receiving grades at the very bottom there, 85.8 overall offensive grade with a 79.6 receiving grade. I get it. This is a short sample. This is preseason. It is what it is, but he's looked good all camp, and he looks so good in the preseason, you can't cut him from the 53-man roster. You can't make him to the practice squad. Somebody will steal him. He will get claimed. So this is who I have keeping on the tight ends, 4 of them out of the 5. Now the offensive line. This is where it gets a little bit trickier, and I'm very confident in this. If it doesn't end up this way, I'm going to be a little surprised. Now Theo Benedict might not make it to the IR. He might be claimed off waivers. It depends on how the Bears put him on IR. So for example, Doug Coleman is available for waivers. I don't know if Theo Benedict is yet as well, or if he's going to be on the PUP, or what he's going to end up being on. If they're going to allow him to go through waivers and then re-sign him to the IR or go to the practice squad, who knows what's going to end up there. They talked about on Hard Knocks how his injury is going to last at least a couple weeks into the season. But Matt Pryor and Bill Murray have absolutely solidified spots on this roster. All the other guys, those 7 guys, are roster locks, and then Bill Murray and Matt Pryor should be roster locks as well. Bill Murray was the best graded lineman overall this preseason out of any team. Now, I realize some teams are still playing tomorrow, but Bill Murray had an overall grade of 88.5, and his pass blocking grade was 90.4. Out of 125 snaps, he was elite on every aspect of the game. He played this preseason like a guy who is fighting to make a roster, and he will make the Bears roster. He is a converted defensive tackle. I think everybody knows that by now. Clearly has shown that he is taking this seriously and he wants to be on this team. Matt Pryor has experience with Indianapolis and San Francisco. If you didn't watch the press conference today, Matt Eberflus talked about how happy they are with Matt Pryor, that he has the ability to play every spot on the offensive line. So for him to be able to be the swing tackle till Kieran Amagaji, it gets up to speed. With his experience, he's far better than Larry Borum. Larry Borum last year, of all tackles that played 200 snaps or more, he was graded 91st out of 99. And I realize he's had an average preseason so far, average offseason. He has taken a lot of reps. I think they're just trying to see what they can get out of him, see if it's worth keeping him for this one last year. And I think that time's come. So I think he's done. I think Matt Pryor is the swing tackle until Kieran Amagaji gets up to speed. Bill Murray plays the primary guard, rotational guy in. Those 9 make me feel very comfortable about this line starting the season. I do think we can try to trade a couple of these guys. Larry Borum especially. Jatiri Carter probably get some trade value for. If we could, it'd probably be something like what we just did with our trade, swapping a 6th for a 7th swap, or a 5th for a 6th, or even just grabbing a 7th from someone. That's the type of trade you would see in this type of situation. But if we can do that, great. It improves the draft value. And you never know if one of those 7th rounders can be used to couple up with a 4th rounder to move into the 3rd round. Who knows what would happen. So that's why you like this type of situation. So with that being the offense, this is where the offense ends up with the 53-man roster. 25 guys overall. The 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 6 receivers, 4 tight ends, and 9 offensive linemen, and I really like the way that looks. So let's move to the defense. We'll move through this fairly quickly yet again. And I'm fairly confident with this as now as well. As I first started making this, I had a little blue block where Chris Williams is because I said I think we're probably going to get Levi Onwuzurike. And I have no doubt the Bears probably made those calls to the Lions trying to inquire on him. Because what you get with Chris Williams is the pass block or the pass rush efficiency. If you haven't seen my video on Chris Williams, when we traded for him, I made a video on him. I'm more excited for him than I am for Darrell Taylor. I am excited for both of them. I just kind of wanted a home run on the defensive end spot. I understand the vision now. I get what Matt Eberflus is doing. I get what Ryan Poles is doing. What they're doing is they're going into the season with high upside potential, and then if something hasn't worked out with all these guys that there's so much high upside potential, then you can make a Montez Sweat type of trade mid-season. Or if it's going really well, you've reserved your first rounder next year, your second rounder next year, your other second rounder next year, your third rounder next year, to be able to draft and continue to build this team the right way, because we're losing no contracts next year. Next year is going to be the year you're going to see this team continue to add talent without losing the talent. The only one we're set to lose right now is Keenan Allen. Coleman Shelton, if we don't extend him. But we have such high-value draft picks. This is going to be competition, iron sharpening iron. This is a really exciting time to be a Bears fan because these contracts are built right now, and Ryan Poles is going all in. This is a Super Bowl window that we're opening up. Those who don't think the Bears are really focused and in on a Super Bowl this year are crazy. I get we have a rookie quarterback, but this team is built the right way. This is going to be fun to watch. All right, so I got to point out Daniel Hardy. Here's the biggest news right here. Daniel Hardy, look at the pressures. His PRP of 14.1 was best on the entire team, even more than Austin Booker. 10.9 win rate as well. So those are both really good. And Austin Booker, I'm not saying anything bad about him because he was right there with him. Austin Booker's a lock, though. So if we're looking at everybody else, his offseason was just way too much to pass up on. I know some people were saying, well, he's just like Jacob Martin or Yannick Ngakoue. He's too small after we trade for Darrell Taylor and Chris Williams. Everyone's like, we need the big guys. Austin Booker's increased his size to 255, 260. DeMarcus Walker's bigger. Montez Sweat's bigger. They just talked about in the press conference that Chris Williams is able to go across different spots on the line as well, that he's played edge. He's played out wide 9, and he can come back in. Darrell Taylor, the same thing. He's playing a 4-3 now where he can put his knuckles in the grass and go for it. I get it. But there is value with what Daniel Hardy just showed, and Austin Booker's showing the same thing. So these guys, I think they've done too much not to be on the roster. And in fact, I've got Jacob Martin there on the IR. I think it's a technique for us just to stash him, just to keep him, possibly trade him if we can, once we can get some value. If not, I see Daniel Hardy taking the spot over Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin had a really high upside with his 17% pass rush win rate last year in the NFL in limited snaps. So I like it. I just think Daniel Hardy's done too much not to make this roster. So I do have Daniel Hardy taking that last spot. And this is really what it will look like right here. It's either Jacob Martin or Daniel Hardy. I think Byron Cowart we try to trade, or he's just a cut candidate. Jamari Croma is going to go to the practice squad. I really have confidence that we can keep him. Dominic Robinson's gone. No matter what happens, trade or just cut. Michael Dwumfour, Deshaun Mallory, and then our new addition of Jalen Hutchings. So that's how I see the most important spot this off. We've really shorted up with those last two. Darrell Taylor, Chris Williams. I get it. I wanted more of a home run, but really we've converted 2 6th-round picks into a 7th-round pick and 2 players. And those 6th, 7th-rounders, guys, those are the guys like Dominic Robinson that don't always pan out. Those are the guys like Williamson, who was a 7th-round pick. We didn't even keep through the end of our camp 2 years ago. So this is Kendall Williamson, who I'm referring to. And then we ended up getting replacing him with the Rams safety, who's Quindale Johnson, who's on the team right now. So I really see this being the way this goes. Let's keep moving along. We'll go now to the linebackers. I do see us keeping 6. Micah Baskerville and Amen Ogbongbemiga have just played too well. And I see us keeping Carl Jones, possibly Javin White, on the practice squad. These linebackers are going to become very valuable. The reason being, you're not on the kick return coverage now. You're not, when you kick it off, you're not running 40 yards like you need your wide receivers and your cornerbacks, your safeties to be on that coverage. These linebackers are perfect for that. Think about the linebackers when they're lined up. They're 10 yards off the ball and they're reading it. That's what you have with these guys that are off the ball on the kick return. They're reading it. Big, powerful, still 220 pounds, 240 pounds, lay the lumber. They're the guys who lay the lumber on this team. The Bears are full of hits guys, Eamon Ogbongbemiga and Micah Baskerville have both shown that this offseason. Both have really good hands, too. So I see us keeping 6. I see most teams keeping 6. So this is what I see, and I really like the idea of both those guys making the team. As we move to cornerback, Reddy Stewart obviously has made this team. The hardest decision on this roster, I believe, is going to be between Josh Blackwell and Greg Stroman Jr. Jalen Jones has played really well, and I like that he can go back and forth between safety and cornerback. So I really should say between Josh Blackwell, Jalen Jones, and Greg Stroman Jr. If you see one of them traded in the next couple days, this is why. It's a super hard decision. And, man, I can't decide. But Josh Blackwell had a really good preseason. He had, other than the last game, and he had a really good camp. You hear about him in camp all the time, but you hear about Greg Stroman too. Man. So Jalen Jones, he can convert between cornerback and safety, so I see the value there. This is the hardest one for me, but I am going to go with Josh Blackwell, and I think that's the way the Bears go to, but we'll see. It might be Greg Stroman, might be Jalen Jones. Leon Jones, I would hope, would make the practice squad. Ro Torrance didn't do anything for us. He's going to be cut soon. Other guys on the practice squad, Colin Johnson, another reason he makes it, he's a tackler. I mean, 6'6", but he lays lumber. He had the very first tackle in the Hall of Fame game, and he just looks solid. So there's other guys that will make the roster, like Josh Blackwell, maybe Greg Stroman for special teams as well, like Colin Johnson, who can take that 6 wide receiver spot because of their ability on special teams as well. All right, last spot, safeties. This was one of the hardest ones as well. Elijah Hicks has a lot of value, but he played poorly at the end of last year. Quindale Johnson, really coming along. I hope we can keep on the practice squad. The biggest reason I kept Tarvarius Moore, he's looked good all preseason. He showed the injury concerns are gone. He's played at the highest level. But the hits principle is really important, and every one of our guys, from Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, getting better. Jalen Johnson was probably the weakest tackler, but he's getting better at that too. Tyreek Stevenson, huge hitter. All of our linebackers, all big hitters. Tarvarius Moore is a good hitter. All these guys good at tackling. But what Tarvarius Moore brings and what he's shown this preseason, this is his preseason snaps, 109, 66 in coverage. Look at his coverage grade at the bottom right, 85.4, one of the highest in the entire NFL. So when you've got a safety that can also hit and have good coverage, he was showing why he was good for the Niners when a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, why he had the pick for them. He's good. Tarvarius Moore is going to make this roster. So this is a hard one, but I do see Elijah Hicks, Quindale Johnson just falling right below Tarvarius Moore. I think he really takes that spot. Some people are talking about Jonathan Owens like he's not going to make the roster. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Jonathan Owens is great on everything, including special teams. So he's going to make the roster. I have no doubt about that. And I really feel confident with these 4. We'll see what the Bears do, but I feel confident with this. And then here's my big surprise. This is purely speculation, but Patrick Scales has been out with injury. Cameron Lyons has been taking the lion's share. Haha, good pun there. Lion's share of the snaps, all of them, but I think 2 or 3. I've talked about how I'd like to see one of these tight ends or defensive ends take over the long snapping duty. If you're tight end 5 or defensive end 7 on this team, you find a way onto the roster by snapping as well. But Cameron Lyons did that. He's cheaper than Patrick Scales. Patrick Scales is getting really old. He's going to have to replace probably next year anyways. So Cameron Lyons is bringing in youth. He's cheaper, and he built rapport. Torrey Taylor was the holder all offseason. You saw a little bit in the beginning. There were a few high snaps, but then they really brought it down. They looked really good together, and if you've got rapport already, you've got a cheaper option. Why not run with it? So this one's not that important, but it is kind of my surprise one. I see Cameron Lyons being the long snapper over Patrick Scales. Sorry, Patrick Scales, nothing against you. I just think it's a useless position when we could have a tight end or a defensive end be able to fill that role, and Cameron Lyons is younger. So if we're going to have someone, let's have the young guy who can build rapport with Torrey Taylor right off the bat, build rapport with the team, and be able to do it for years to come. So there is my final 53-man roster. Sorry, I moved the wrong one there. There's my final 53-man roster. 2 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Tyson Bagent. 4 running backs, Roshan Johnson, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Bayless Jones Jr. 6 receivers, Romo Dunze, Tyler Scott, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Dante Pettis, and Colin Johnson. And that's the biggest one where you see a lot of people differing with their projections so far. I really think this is the way it's going to be. DeAndre Carter didn't show me anything special on returns, on special team, as a wide receiver at all this preseason. And I really think the Bears came into this with open competition and open minds. Same thing on tight end. Brendan Bates, Tommy Sweeney being cut really showed Brennan Bates was the guy, and he really was. He was one of the best players on the entire team this entire preseason. I don't see him being cut. I see him being tight end 4, especially with his blocking ability that can take over for a Kerry Blasingame, for Travis Homer. He can be lined up in the backfield like we've already been doing this offseason, this preseason, and take some of those blocks that he needs to. Kieran Amagaji, Darnell Wright, Nate Davis, Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Bill Murray, and Matt Pryor on the offensive line. On the defensive line, Austin Booker, Jervon Dexter Sr., Zach Pickens, Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, Darrell Taylor, Chris Williams, Andrew Billings, and Daniel Hardy. Linebackers, Noah Sewell, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Zach Sanborn, Micah Baskerville, Eamon Ogbong Mugija. Man, I'm getting real close on his name. Cornerbacks, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Reddy Stewart, Josh Blackwell. Safeties, Kevin Byard, Jonathan Owens, Jaquan Brisker, Tavarius Moore. And specialist, Torrey Taylor, Cairo Santos, and Cameron Lyons. So let me know what you guys think. I tried to go through that as fast as I humanly could, but I wanted to give basis behind it because I really think this is the most comprehensive reasoning that you're going to see out there. Reasoning for why the roster is going to be the way it is. All those positions, 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 6 receivers, 4 tight ends, 9 offensive line, 9 defensive line, 6 linebackers, 6 cornerbacks, 4 safeties, 3 specialists. We could still have an addition made. We could see a name brought in, but I really think us having the game on Thursday gave Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus an opportunity to get to work ahead of some of these other teams. More of what I'm seeing at this point is us trading some of these guys away for some of those late round picks that we want to acquire, because this is a deeper team now, and I can see some teams calling for us for some of those safeties, for some of those cornerbacks, for a running back, for some of the different positions that we have. So I see even a lineman, offensive and defensive lineman. So maybe Daniel Hardy doesn't make the team because someone offers something for him. We'll see. But hopefully that's Jake Martin. Oh, I don't know. That's tough. But we'll see. Tuesday, I'll put a thing out showing notification for that here pretty soon. If you haven't signed up for the Fantasy Football League, send me to the link where I put to my email or to Twitter. Let me know you want to be in on it. We're real close, and then I'm going to put stuff out for that as well. Get notifications out that early, and that'll be fun. Just have a good time, kind of a live like a game, but. Let me know your thoughts on this roster, though. You guys think this is going to be the way it pans out? You think this is going to be the way it goes? Or do you like another player, a different safety, a different cornerback, a different defensive lineman, different offensive lineman? I don't know how you could over Bill Murray or Matt Pryor, guys. I'm pretty solid on that one. Of anything, I'm set. If you think we're keeping one of the Travis Homer or Kerry Blasingame, let me know what you guys think in the comment. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Really great to be a part of this community. Appreciate all of you guys. Until next time, claws up, bear down, and dabears.